Hello and welcome. My name is Leah Kopke. I'm a 3D motion design freelancer, and this is my podcast, Ambient 3D Animations. Whether if you are a 2D artist or a 3D artist, sketching is a skill that will help you in either of those areas. So today we're going to go through all the settings and tools you need to know to get started inside of Sketchbook Pro in just a few minutes. So let's go ahead and get started. Just quickly, I'd like to point out to you that under this window drop-down menu, if you don't see anything here, you can open it up in your window drop-down menu. So very helpful area to be aware of. Now let's get started talking about this. Here on the left of here, you have what is called your brush palette. To the right of that, you'll see our brush puck and our color puck, and we'll go through what those do in a moment. We have our toolbar here at the top. It's very helpful. We have our color editor right below it, custom colors, and our layer editor. Down here to the left is called the lagoon, and we'll go over that in a moment. In the center of your screen, what you're drawing on, that is called your canvas. So a little bit different if you're a 3D artist and you're used to calling that your viewport. Now it is your canvas. And over here, you'll see that if we go in the image drop-down menu, you'll see canvas size. So this is really important. This is probably the first thing you want to do when starting a project. You'll see your current size listed in width and height, and the amount of memory this file will take up, most likely. And you can choose your new size, choose the units you'd like in here, enter in the numbers in here. Your canvas actually has an anchor. So I like to have mine in the center, but if you like yours in a corner, something like that, you can choose that, and I'll hit OK. Now we were talking about how to move your canvas because some of us like to draw on an angle or zoom in, zoom out, whatever you want to do. So you can do all of that by hitting the space bar, and you'll get this little puck in the center here. Very helpful. You can zoom in, you can zoom out by hitting this little button here in the center, and then this will let you rotate. You can also move like that, move and rotate. So that gives you a lot of abilities, and depending on where you have this puck, you can kind of zoom in on different areas. So that's really important to do. You can also find this by hitting this button up here to the top on your toolbar. Now, speaking of the toolbar, let's also talk a little bit about how to start a new layer and use that as an example for some of these tools. So if you hit this plus button here, you can start a new layer. If you hit this folder button, you can create a folder or a group, and then you can place layers in it. You can move your layers up and down with this button here to the right, so I can put that inside of the folder. And once I do that, that'll be ready for me to draw on. So I can grab a brush from here. There are 3 different kinds of brushes. There are brushes that draw, there are brushes that erase, and there are brushes that smudge. So I'll click on this one now, and now we can smudge this. So that's really fun to do, of course. And it feels so natural drawing inside of here. That's one of the reasons why I like drawing inside of Sketchbook Pro, is because it feels a lot like drawing on paper. It's the closest I found so far to feeling like drawing on paper. And if you want additional brushes in here, you can click on this button here, and you'll see your brush library. Now you can drag and drop any one of these brushes from here into here. And if you'd like to learn how to make custom brushes, I will go over that in the future in a future episode. But that's the basics to get started, and you may want to adjust your brush size. So there's a couple different ways to do that. You can, number one, use this brush puck, click and drag to the right or the left to make it smaller. Right makes it bigger, left makes your size smaller. So you can adjust your brush size like that. You can adjust your flow rate or your opacity by dragging up and down inside of this puck, and you'll see at the bottom it says opacity. Sometimes it'll say flow. It really depends on what kind of brush you have selected. But that's what that controls. So now I've made the opacity a little bit lower. and it looks a little bit different. You can also access these with hotkeys. So you can adjust your brush size with the B button for brush size, B, and then drag your mouse to the right or the left to adjust the size. You can also adjust this with O, to use the O hotkey to adjust the flow or the opacity depending on the brush you have selected. And that's how you can draw in there. And you can use the selection here, the selection tool, and you can see all these different selection types and shapes. We'll go into that in greater depth in the future. Right now I'll just show it with the rectangle select. And once you do that, you'll have a selection. If you want to deselect it, you can hit this button here or use Control D to deselect. I'm going to select that again because I'd like to show some additional tools. Like how you can now hit distort, and you can distort your selection. So this is distort, and you can move it. You can also choose the quick transform button, and that'll bring up this new puck here where you can rotate something. You can actually make another selection and then choose the quick transform if you just want to transform a section instead of everything on the layer. You can rotate by clicking on these arrows. You can also scale uniformly by clicking the center button. You can scale non-uniformly by clicking this button up here that's highlighted in blue. By dragging to the right or left, or I can drag up and down to scale it that way. You can also move it with this outer area, and when you're done, you hit the check mark and you're done. If you'd like to fill in a whole area with the bucket here, you can do that as well. You can choose a color you'd like and click and it'll fill it in. I'm going to hit undo. There's a few places where you can actually find the undo button. You can find the undo up here. You can find the undo button down here. You can also just hit Control Z to undo things. And if you want to redo them, you can hit Control Y. And likewise, you can find the redo button here. You can find the redo button down here. So there's multiple locations for it. Now you know all of them, so you are a pro. And next to the fill button, we have something called the text layer. So I'll go ahead and click on that here, and you'll see we get this little dialog in here. I can choose a font. I will choose Arial Black. You can choose a size. I'll make this nice and big. You can choose if you want it to be bold and such. You can go ahead and type whatever you want in here. I'll hit OK. And now you can see we have the words hello. I feel like I'm just scribbling over my old art right now. But anyways, that's how you can do that. If you would like to delete a layer, we haven't covered that right now. You just click on the layer, drag towards the trash can, and it is gone. If you would like to duplicate a layer, you click and drag towards the duplicate, and it appears. You can adjust the opacity of a layer as well. So I'm going to use the quick transform to move this down so that I can adjust the opacity with the slider here. So you can also adjust the opacity in your layers. You can choose different layer modes in here. Like I could choose darken or color burn. Let's try color burn. And then you can see the effect that's having. So those tools are similar to something like Photoshop if you've ever worked in Photoshop. So that's fun to play around with. And you also have this button here, lock transparency. And then when I decide I'm going to draw on this, I'll choose a different color like blue. I'll actually try it on this one. You might be able to see it better. I am only able to draw on the part that's already has some opacity to it. If it's transparent, I can't draw on that area. Accidentally zoomed in there. But there you go. That's how that works. Really fun. And we also have some other tools in here, but that's the basics actually for your layer. You can also lock your layer in place if you don't want to use it at all. Click and drag towards this little lock button, and you can lock it. You can rename it something like practice layer, because this is all an example. Something else you can do in here is adjust your color. So you can do that in the color editor or the color puck. So these both have similar purposes. If you don't want this huge color editor open, you can close that and just rely mostly on this puck because it takes up less space on the screen. So that's why Autodesk gives you those two different options for Sketchbook Pro. It's in case if you don't want this huge thing taking up your screen, but they work very similarly. So this diamond here in the center, this is where you choose your value and your saturation of your color. So you can see it's a gradient for hue and saturation. It's lighter at the top, darker at the bottom, less saturated at the left, more saturated at the right. You can choose these different color modes here: HSL, HSV, RGB. You can also choose to randomize the colors by hitting this button here, and you can choose a range of hue, saturation, and value in here. I'll create a new layer, and I'll just start drawing, and I'll also increase the opacity. But if I start drawing, you'll see that each stroke is a different color. So that's kind of a fun tool to mess around with. If you need a range of colors in an area, or you're drawing a lot of leaves or blades of grass and you want them each to be slightly different shades of green or something like that, you can control that in here. It's super fun. And so those are those main tools. If you click on this, you can see different gradients for value and such in here to work with. You can type in a specific hex code if you would like an exact color to work with as well. So those are all useful to know. Going back to our toolbar, we're moving to the right. You have guides here. You can use an ellipse, a ruler, a curved ruler. You can also use this French curve. You can check out the perspective tools here and draw in perspective. We'll cover that in greater depth in the future. You have your symmetry tools here: vertical symmetry, horizontal symmetry, angled symmetry, radial symmetry. We'll cover those in greater depth in the future, but just so that you know, this is where they are. So if you want to draw in symmetry, you can. And then you also can click on this. When enabled, only draw with pen. That is one option. You can also use the steady stroke. So I'm going to hit undo, click on the steady stroke, and you can adjust the amount this is affecting your work. The higher number, the more it's being smoothed out. But this is basically if you feel like you have a little bit of a shaky hand, it'll average the movement of your mouse or your pen so that you get a nice smooth line. You can also, I'm going to turn that off. I'm going to turn on this predictive stroke, and this will make it easier to do things like draw perfect ellipses. So it's kind of like a cheat to draw a good ellipse. I mean, you still need to draw a pretty decent ellipse for it to come out looking okay. For it to recognize you're drawing an ellipse, it has to be somewhat elliptical, but it does help smooth that out so that it looks nice. And then you can also choose different shapes. I can draw a circle here. I can draw a square. I can draw a perfect line if I want. I can do a zigzag line by clicking my mouse a few times, hit enter. And we have a line. This is starting to look messy, so I'm going to delete all that. This will This is the auto hide, so things will automatically hide after a period of time. Once you click on that, this is your layer, so this turns on and off your layer editor from being viewed. This turns on and off your brush palette from being viewed. This turns on and off your color palette from being viewed. And this turns on and off your custom colors. And this can be a helpful tool too. You can use this to create color palettes in here. And we'll definitely cover this in greater depth in a future episode, but just so that you know, you can go ahead and add colors into here and create color palettes. That's important to be aware of. You can create new ones and drag the colors you like to commonly use. So that's all there, ready for you to go. The last thing that I'd like to cover down here is the lagoon. And the reason why this is a part of the UI, and I actually really like it for this reason, is like if you just don't want all of this stuff showing up on your screen all the time and you just want to close out of that, the lagoon's really nice because it's a compact way to show your tools. So you have a lot of different measurement tools in here and such like that. And you can customize this. It's kind of like a little palette of tools that you can customize to work with. And we'll cover this in greater depth in another video. But you can choose brushes from here. You can choose colors from here. You have different editing tools in here. And in here you can save and all of that, open up new files. If you hover over it, you'll see what it does. You can create a new project. And then there's just a couple last things I'd like to show you for this puck. So these are nice and small so that if you really just want your artwork taking up the whole screen, these don't take up much space. If you click and move to the right and the left, that controls saturation. The right, it's more saturated. The left, it becomes less saturated, the color. If you click and drag up and down, that affects the value. So you can control the value or the luminance doing that. So that's all good to be aware of. If you click in the center of the color puck, you'll see the same controls for hue, saturation, and value, and you'll even see this color picker off to the side. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my layers again and hide these so that we're back to my original artwork here. And of course you can file, save, and export out your image any way you'd need. So this is a nice brief overview to get you drawing in no time. Please hit like, subscribe, and if you'd like to join our Discord server where we share art and learn from each other, please check that out in the description. Thank you so much for hanging out and drawing with me, and I hope to see you here next time on Ambient 3D Animations.